Welcome to Farm Charm Chic. I'm Emily. Today's episode is all about thrifting for risers. I absolutely love using risers in my table displays, my home decor, and all throughout my home. I know there's something that you love because they are some of my most popular videos. And to be honest with you, the pieces that you can find while antiquing or thrifting to make risers are so simple and easy to find. You just have to use a little creativity and you too can have beautiful risers for your home in a matter of minutes. If you like crafting, DIYs, dupes, hacks, thrift flips, or just creating in general, I would love if you would consider subscribing. When you see your favorite riser today, remember to hit that thumbs up, but let's go make some DIYs. While shopping at my local antique market recently, I found this little votive holder and I thought it was so beautiful. The rustic finish on it was perfect. I'm not going to really need to do anything to it other than I want to add a top to make this a riser. Now, I was trying to decide which place I wanted to have as the top and the bottom, and I ultimately decided to place the opening on the bottom. So that way, if I wanted to place a tea light or some fairy lights in there, it would shine through all of those delicate cutouts. I thought that would be beautiful. So now I have these two wooden rounds that I'm trying to decide which size I would like to do for my riser. I ultimately decide to go with the bigger one. Now these risers I get at Hobby Lobby. You can get them when the wood is on sale for 30, 40, or 50% off depending on what the sale is. And they have a beveled edge. And when I do risers, love to put the beveled edge down. So that way you have more surface area you're working with. Now I love to beat the heck out of these. I'm taking some pliers. I'm putting some little pock marks in here. I'm going around the edge with my pliers to kind of give some distress marks. If you don't like this and this is not your thing, you'll clearly skip this step. Now I'll even take my pliers and I'll even drag it through the wood to make some marks in there. We're going to stain this and that's just going to make this look more aged. It's going to kind of match the two pieces together because where the votive holder really has a rustic finish to it, I want my wood to look the same way. So I'm even softening the edge of the pine with my pliers and with my fingernail file here to give a really soft look. I really want this piece of wood to look like it was sitting in the back barn for years and years and years, and then you found it and decided to do something with it. So here I'm kind of doing the same finish on that beveled edge, so if you see it from the side, it will look distressed as well. Now I'm taking some antiquing wax. You can use some stain, you can use some watered down brown paint, whatever you would like to do, any color as well. I love to kind of keep the natural tones when I'm doing my risers, when I'm mixing the wood and the metal here. I just love the look of this stain. Now this looks really dark because it is going on fairly heavy, but we'll wipe it back in just a second. I'm using a brush so I can make sure I get into all of those little distressing marks that I created, and that will hold that antiquing wax in a darker shade. So when you wipe it back, you're really going to notice a difference here, and I'll show you exactly what that looks like here. You can use a paper towel or a wet wipe to do this part, just something, even a rag, just something to pull back the majority of that stain. So you can see all of those distressing marks that we created, how it makes them look like they were aged. It was just sitting there for years, picking up all of that distressing look, that grime, everything. We just want this to look rusty, crusty, and like it's just antique and vintage. Around the beveled edge, it is a little bit of a different finish on the wood there, and so I'm having to go in with my fingernail file just to brighten that up a bit because the stain was really dark there. I didn't love the way that looked, but this again just adds to that distressed look. So to glue this on here, I'm just using some Gorilla super glue. Any kind of super glue will work. I found that the hot glue with the metal and the wood, you'll get a little bit of a hold. So if it's something that you're needing as a temporary hold for a short period of time, like a few weeks or something, you can do that. But I love to use the super glue for a more permanent hold. E6000 would also work if you would like to. I just like the super glue for this. Now this is how cute this ended up looking. I love this. I think with a little tea light underneath there, it would be beautiful. I think that the size of the wood round, the little bit bigger size, I love it with that votive. So I can stack a couple more things on there. I think this is just going to be so beautiful and elegant for the little bit of a rustic modern farmhouse touch. What do you guys think of this? I was so excited when I saw this piece in the thrift store. It was missing one of its little like hanging knobs there. It was $1.50, I believe, is what I paid on this piece. And it, you know, clearly it's meant to be hung on the wall for you to hang something from, like your aprons or something. I don't know, whatever you use, some cute little decor or something. But it was missing a couple of one of the little knobs on it. So I'm just going to remove the others and I'm going to turn this into a riser. You guys know I love my risers. They're so fun. They're such a great way to bring some different textures into your decorating, and I feel like they're pieces that can be used over and over again. I recently did a bridal shower for my niece and I took all of my risers and we had the most beautiful display of food for the table on all these different heights and different things. It was so pretty. So they really do come in handy, and I just love having a lot of them. So it takes just a minute for me to get all of the hardware removed from this. I even removed the pieces where you would hang this, because we don't need them there anymore. And I'm going to end up spray painting this so I can get into all those little grooves. Hand painting this, I think, would be kind of a nightmare, so I didn't want to even go down that road. I'm just taking a little spackling. My spackling is kind of dry. I think I need to get a new tub of it because it was a little bit, but it worked, but it's definitely on its last leg here. But I'm just kind of pushing that down through that opening where the knobs were screwed in. And then I will just let this dry, and then I will go back in and sand it so it's flat. And that's just going to camouflage that hole that was in there from where those little hanging fixtures were. To turn this into a riser, I'm using some little teeny finials. I purchased these on Amazon. I will leave a link to them in my description box. But if you want to make it really easy on yourself, even just some little wood beads, if you have some even from Dollar Tree or something, would work perfect for this. So we're going to paint over them so it could even be like the colored beads from Dollar Tree. But I do love these little finials. I buy them in a pack of like 25 or 50 of them. So I have quite a few, and they just kind of have a little bit of a different shape than a wooden bead, and so it kind of adds just a little bit more embellishment on it than just a plain wooden bead. But again, nobody's going to be turning this over and looking at the back side of it, so you're probably fine to just do what you have. I love this coastal sage color. This is such a beautiful color of spray paint. I couldn't leave this natural because we had to remove that hardware, and so I had to fix with the spackling. So I did need to choose a color, but I think this is going to match my decor so wonderfully, and I think this is a very kind of a neutral color almost in the decor styles that you're seeing today. But look at how pretty this is and how beautiful. I really think this is going to be such a fun riser to have with all of those cutouts and everything. And you can go as simple as you want or as elaborate as you want, even to put like a couple candles on here or have this in your bathroom with some beautiful perfume bottles or something. I just think this is so pretty. On one of my recent thrifting adventures, I found this pedestal or candle holder. It has this beautiful fleur-de-lis detail on it, but it is this 1970s color of avocado green. Like, it doesn't even translate well on camera. But I have this wood round as well here. This was just in my stash, but you can pick these up at your craft store. You might already have something on hand. And I also have this stone Krylon spray paint that I've been waiting for the perfect project to use it on. And in full transparency, I don't love this spray paint. After using it, I don't know that I would use it on another project, so it may just kind of sit in my stash. But I'm here to try new things, so I'm just kind of reporting back. Now, it takes several coats to get the coverage that you want on here. Maybe I should have started by painting this a base color. I don't know, but I'll have to just kind of show you what it looks like in the end. Now, on my wood round, I really want this to look like a piece that has been around for a really long time. So I made sure to kind of sand the edges so it kind of gives it a rounded look. And then I'm also going to beat the heck out of it with some pliers. I really want this to look like maybe it was a cutting board type of wood that has just been around for a really long time, something that you found off of the farm. I really wanted it to have this vintage, old world type of look to it. So I really do just kind of beat this up with a couple different pliers. And then when I take my antiquing wax, you'll kind of see what happens. So I'm just going to place that antiquing wax down, and with a baby wipe, I'm going to go over the top of it here, just kind of like we're staining it. And you can see all of those little pock marks that I've made there and all those little scratches. You just want to make sure that your antiquing wax goes into each of those. That's what's going to give this the really aged look. Now here's what our pedestal looks like with that paint on there. It bubbled up in some areas, not in other areas. I don't know. It wasn't my most favorite. I feel like you can do a lot different techniques that I like better, but for the sake of just showing you guys what it looks like, I mean, it looks fine, but I'm not going to be rushing out to buy that paint again to do another project with. So I'm just using some E6000 on here. You can use whatever adhesive you like. I'm letting this sit overnight, so I didn't need like the hot glue for like that immediate hold here. I just ended up setting some heavy stuff on the top of it to kind of clamp that glue down. So I'm just strictly going with E6000 for my glue. And as you saw, I did kind of sand around the edge to get a clean area of the ceramic to adhere to the wood. Now to center this, I'm just turning it all upside down, and I'm just going to kind of place my pedestal down, and then I just kind of turn it a little bit, make sure that I'm kind of even from the sides here. You can measure if you would like. You can do whatever method you would like. I just do the eyeball method. I just wipe up any excess glue that might have seeped out from that E6000. Here's the completed project. It really does turn out beautiful. Again, I think you could save yourself some time. It took forever for this spray paint to dry. So I think if you were to just use some chalk paint on a thing that you get like this, you can kind of see it bubbles up in some areas, not so much in others. So I didn't love that, but I mean, I still think it turns out beautiful. I will definitely use this piece in my decor. Has a very fun farmhouse, French farmhouse vibe to it, and so I really think it's kind of going to be one of those staple pieces. But again, you probably could get the same thing from just using some paint. But what do you guys think about this? Do you love how this turned out? I really want to think that my husband thought he was stumping me really hard with this one here. And for a minute I looked at it and thought, well, I could make a really cute sign out of it. But I loved the framework on this piece. And when I started to take this wheat that was on here, which did not smell the best, so I did throw it away, because sometimes when you're working with dried flowers and you just want to get rid of them if they're thrifted, because they may carry some smells that you just can't get rid of. But as I was removing this, which it was wired in here to this, it wasn't glued, which I thought it was originally. So after I loosened this, I realized that it's like beadboard in the back of it, and it has the most beautiful design. And so you'll kind of see as I remove the florals here and I set this down, look at how pretty that is, the backing on that. So I really wanted to showcase that. And when I saw that, I thought, okay, I'm going to make a riser out of this. I know I'm like the queen of risers or whatever. I love to make risers because I really do feel like they're pieces that they're timeless. You can use them in so many different ways, especially if you're doing like a party or a bridal shower or baby shower or something. I mean, what a fun way to make your tables have the different levels and have a beautiful display. But they're gorgeous for your own home too. And I thought this was actually, I made this in mind thinking of my kitchen island. So that's kind of where I went with this one. Now I was trying to decide the different shapes of feet to have on here. I have these candle holders right here, which is ultimately what I decided, or I had some larger, they look like wooden beads. And I liked those, but I really liked the elevation that these gave. So I'm just showing you there. I just picked them up at Hobby Lobby. They're both in their wood pile section. And I don't think I would have gone wrong with either foot that I chose, but I just kind of like the height that I got with this particular piece here. I'm just using some basic wood glue from Dollar Tree. Any kind of wood glue will work. It's nice because the feet are wood and the sign is wood, so you're gonna get like the best bond possible. I just let that dry really good, and then I'm moving on to the next step, which, if you remember, this had those two holes that were in the middle where that floral arrangement was being attached. And so I don't want that there, obviously. So I want to cover it with some spackling, and then I just let that dry and went in and kind of sanded it down to smooth it out. And you cannot tell that there were two holes there. It looks just like one solid piece. Now the color of paint that I chose is the Sage color by Folk Art. It's very similar to the Vintage Duck Egg by Dixie Belle. In my home, this is almost like a neutral color. I love this. It's a fresh feel color. It's not super bright or overpowering. You can match other colors to it very easily. I love the look of this, and I love the two-tone look of this color mixed with white. So what I'm going to do is paint the edge white, but I thought since it was already that dark brown, it would be fun to add a crackle medium. So that's what I'm laying down here, is I just went around with this crackle medium, and then I'm going to even this out with my brush. And then my instructions on the Folk Art one say to let it sit at least 30 minutes to dry. I usually let mine sit for about an hour or more. I usually move on to another project, go eat lunch, something. Just let it get really good and dry so you can make sure that the whole crackle process works really well. It's kind of frustrating when you do a whole process like this that takes a lot of time and you've missed a step or done something incorrectly and it doesn't work. That's always frustrating. So I just make sure it gets a lot of time to dry. I didn't want any white paint splattering onto my beadboard, so I just taped that off. And then now I'm going in with my white paint. If you've ever used crackle medium before, you'll kind of know what I'm going to go over here. But if you haven't ever done this before, don't be scared of it. It is such an easy process, but you need to remember that once you have started painting an area and get your desired coverage, you can go over about 3 or 4 times to get your desired coverage with your brush strokes, and then you need to stop and move on to the next area. Because what happens is the reaction starts to take place and your crackling starts to happen. And if you bump that paint or disturb it, it's going to kind of wipe off the paint that you've already put on there. And I mean, it like pulls it off in like a pretty decent amount. You can kind of see where my brush is right there, that I went over those areas and it peeled up the paint there. And that was just the edge of my brush just barely hitting that. It's very easy to go in and touch up once everything's dry, but if you can avoid it at all costs, you'll be much happier. So here I'm just painting the feet white, and I also paint the entire upside down portion of the tray with that white chalk paint. That way it looks like it was purchased in a store, you don't see any unfinished area, and it looks very high-end and finished. After the crackle process has all taken place, I'm just going to peel back this tape here and reveal everything. You can kind of see where I got a little bit of white paint on there. It's just an easy fix. I'm going to touch that up. And then I also kind of dry brush a little bit of the white onto the beadboard to kind of help those little ridges and everything show up. But I think this turns out so beautiful. I love this. It's going to look so great on my kitchen island. I can change the decor out for different seasons. Just kind of a fun piece to take something that was a sign and turn it into a tray or a riser, a piece that you'll use year after year, season after season. This is a super easy and quick little thrift flip. I found this little winter Christmas candle stand at my local thrift store for $1, and I thought it would be perfect to kind of paint basic color. I'm just going to paint it white and make a cute little riser out of it. I love to use risers in my decor. I have a whole video that is dedicated to risers. I'll leave a link down below if you want to watch that. But I take this little round from Dollar Tree, and I am taking off this little word that says family here. It is a very thin. There's no way I could have saved it for another project. And then I took all of the paper off, and then I sanded this round down, and I sanded all of the edges to kind of soften them a little bit so it wasn't such like a harsh edge to it. And now I'm just taking some Mod Podge and putting this on the candle base there to help have the paint adhere to it. You could spray paint this. I was just out of spray paint, so I just decided to use chalk paint, and I just chalk painted them both in a basic white color here. So now I'm just going to use a combination of E6000 and hot glue to glue that round onto the base. I take my emery board and file the edges to give it a distressed look. I use a little mineral chalk paint, and then I go over it with some white to kind of dull it down a little bit so it's not super harsh. I love the stability of this piece, and I love that thick base with that round top on it. I think it's so cute. This will definitely get lots of use out of it. I'm always looking for different ways to do risers to raise things up high if I need a different level or something, and I think this will be perfect for that. I really love the size of this piece that I found. I'm not sure if this was a tray or if it was almost like a display case foot like base or something like that. I'm not really sure. It was just a couple of dollars, but when I saw it, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. So I have these feet that came from the wood pallet section at Hobby Lobby, but you can find these at a lot of different like lumber stores, even craft stores, Amazon. They're like big oversized wooden beads, but instead of having a hole through them, they're like sliced off on the one end, so they've got a flat surface to glue onto my base here. So I'm just putting a little bit of wood glue on here because I want this to be really strong. I want this to last a really long time, and I will use just a little dot of hot glue on each of the feet here just for that instant hold. But I really want this piece to kind of be a timeless piece, and that cherry wood that's on it is not doing it for me. So what I'm going to do to make sure that I get these feet completely even is I'm just using my ruler to kind of measure out where I want these. You can eyeball it, you can use a ruler, you can even draw some pencil lines on there. I end up painting the entire surface here, and so if I was to draw any lines, they would get covered with the paint. But as you can see, it's very like lacquered cherry red wood something that's on there. So I wasn't sure how the chalk paint would stick to it. So I thought I would just rough up the surface a little bit just to make sure that it wasn't going to, I think with chalk paint I would have been okay. But I really just wanted to kind of sand this down to make sure I had a little bit of something for the paint to grab onto there. So I'm just using, this is just like Adirondack white, I think I said that wrong, Adirondack? I think that's how you say it. I'm like, I can see it in my head or hear it in my head. But anyway, it's a white color by Waverly, and Waverly or Folk Art. But I just paint the entire surface and front and back. And it took about 3 coats to cover up all of that cherry wood. Now I really wanted this to have kind of a Euro cottage feel or French country feel. And so I really wanted to drive that home with some ticking stripes on here. So I just measured a couple lengths of tape and then taped it off. So that way I'm going to paint a big stripe down the middle. And I chose to do a mineral color. This is kind of a very light gray color, almost a little bit of tan to it. And you can see, and I do a couple of coats on here. And then when I peel this back, this side looks absolutely great. It looks wonderful. I love that satisfying feeling of having some nice clean stripes. But when I go to peel off this second piece of tape here, you'll notice that I have some areas that I did have some bleed through. So I'll show you a little trick that I have yet to try until the next couple stripes I put on this piece. And so I'll kind of show you that in a moment here, kind of how to avoid that. But as I'm peeling this back, I'm starting to notice that there are some little blemishes and things there that I'm not super happy about. You can kind of see that second stripe all along, really. It kind of had some little boo-boos there. So carefully, I'm just taking one of my bigger brushes. You can use a big brush, little brush, whatever you feel more comfortable with. And I'm just going with that original white color, and I'm just kind of touching that up. Now I want a couple different stripes on either side of that middle stripe. So I'm just using some of the washi tape from Dollar Tree here to get that. I didn't want it as wide as my painter's tape, but I wanted it to be even and symmetrical. And so I'm going to do 2 lengths or 2 widths of the washi tape. And then I just kind of went in and measured and got myself, I measured with the washi tape a space there where I put my painter's tape. So that way I've got my negative space. So what I'm going to do to minimize bleed through, and I've never tried this, I've seen a lot of crafters do this, and I'm always like, I'm too quick of a crafter, I don't have time for this. But I thought I would try it on this, and it actually works pretty well. So don't you hate when that happens and you're like, no, I know better. And then you try it and you go, okay, what have I been waiting all this time for? So you paint the original color on. So that white color is the color that I went to paint on, and I'm going to dry that thoroughly. And now I'm going to go back in with my gray color and paint over the top of that. What that does is it just creates a nice solid barrier between the tape and the surface, and so that way it's going to stop any bleed through of any future coats you put on. And so it really does help. You can see how crisp and clear these lines are when I take these pieces of tape off. This is just such a satisfying feeling to see how beautiful and wonderful that is. So it does take a little bit of extra time because you essentially are adding 1 extra layer of paint to your coat of paint to your time, but it really is worth it because you don't have to go back in and touch up. So now I wanted to go in and kind of distress this a little bit. That's up to you. I love to have things look like they're old or they've been around for a minute or two. And you could even just leave it as is, but I have these really fun like French labels here. This is from Chic Couture. I have some information in my description box for Chic Couture. If you want to click on that, you can always reach out to me on Instagram if you have any questions. But with these are like kind of like screen printing. So you're just defuzzing it or fuzzing it. It wouldn't be defuzzing because you're adding a little bit of fuzz because you don't want to peel that paint off. So that's what that little pad was for. I was putting it on and I do my best here. I get my little ruler out to measure. I get asked a lot about where I get these rulers or where I got this. And I got them several years ago from Home Goods, TJ Maxx and Home Goods. So I always keep looking. If I ever find some, I will let you guys know. So I have this chalk paste that is also from Chic Couture. And so this is what you will put over it's kind of like a stencil, but it's just a little bit different because that's kind of where the screen printing process comes in a little bit. Because you put on that chalk paste and then you scrape it off as I'm doing here. This paste was really thick a little bit. You can kind of see I'm using a little bit of elbow grease. And then after I get that all scraped back, I'm just going to peel this back to reveal my design. Now this has an adhesive on the back. I can wash this out with some water, clean out the stencil part and place this back onto its backing, and I can have this stencil to use for several more times. So that is one of the things I hear is it is a little bit of an investment to go with some of these Chic Couture pieces, but if they're pieces you'll use a lot, they're wonderful. But look at how pretty that design is. I think I love that. I wish it had been maybe a little bit bigger for this piece, but I really like how it looks on here. Plus it's not going to take away from a display that I may put on here as a riser. There was just a little booby right there, so I just go in with a little bit of paint and touch that up. And then instead of sanding the label here, I'm just going over so lightly, ever so lightly, with just a little bit of dry paint on there to kind of distress that because I don't want to sand it, it's going to smear it. But look at how beautiful this piece turns out. I do feel like this is a timeless look, especially if you're going for that French country vibe or that Euro cottage that's starting to become so much more popular now. I think this is such a beautiful piece and it's going to make such a statement and last a very long time. I would love to know if you guys like this piece. My daughter did not seem so sure about this candle holder, and it is definitely a little dated, needs a little bit of a refresh. And if you guys have watched me for any length of time, you know that I love finding candles holders like this to make risers out of, and I thought this will be perfect. So after removing the price tag, and I definitely took this up to my sink and washed it really good with some dishwater and some like dish soap and water to make sure I got all of it. It was a little bit sticky, a little grimy, so we just wanted to clean it up really good. Now I'm taking some chalk paint in a stone color. You can see how light that first layer of the chalk paint is. That really is just giving a base layer so the rest of the paint can adhere to this piece, and you can see how much thicker that second coat will go on. So just be patient when you're doing this, work in thin coats and you'll get the coverage will start to come. It took me 3 coats to get that design completely covered up and have the desired coverage that I was looking for. I definitely turned this upside down so that way I could make sure I got all of like the nooks and crannies on it. But I have this piece I purchased at Hobby Lobby. It's like a trivet, like a wood trivet or something. It has like little feet on the bottom of it. You'll see in just a moment. So it's meant to be placed kind of, you know, as a riser without any like elevation or something, I'm guessing. I really liked the design around the edge, and I've been holding on to this for a little bit of time because I thought it would be perfect to make a riser out of. I was just looking for the perfect base piece, and I think that I found it. To kind of tie these pieces together, I'm taking that same stone gray color of chalk paint and I'm going around the really detailed edge of this. I did originally go over the center of the wood to kind of give it like a washed look, like maybe it was washed in that gray. I do end up sanding that off because I do not like the way that it looked, but I am really happy with how going around the edges looks to bring in that gray color so that way they can look like they were meant to go together. Another way to do that would be to completely paint this piece that same gray color and then just go over it with some white detailing or some other type of detailing to bring that edge that has that really carved, beautiful like lace look. When you put in a different color on that, it's going to help that design pop. So I just went around swirling into all the edges of that, making sure that I got a lot of coverage. Now you can see as I remove the sticker from the back here, you can see those little feet that are placed on there. I just blast those with my heat tool and they come right off as well. So that way you're not going to be able to see them at all, but you can kind of see that it was meant to be like laid on a surface and used kind of as a trivet or something to be able to display things on. But it makes, I feel like it makes the most beautiful riser with that detailed edge that it has. So to make that edge pop, now that that gray paint has dried, I just lightly go over and just dry brush it. Dry brushing just means that you've dipped your brush in the color of paint that you're choosing. You wipe most of it off, and so you just have, it's almost like a dry feel to it as you go over that edge, and it's going to hit all of those high points and highlight that so that way you can see this beautiful design on the edge here. I took what was left in my brush, the paint left in that was very dry at this point, but I did just go over the candlestick holder here just because I wanted to showcase the texture of all of the brush strokes from the coats of paint that I put on here. This is just a matter of personal preference. If you don't like it, you would skip this step, but you can kind of see the texture that it's giving and how it just kind of adds that. I really like the look of that. Now I'm taking just some super glue here and I'm just putting this around the candlestick here. I did not put any paint there, so I'm going to get surface to surface contact. That's going to give you the best hold and the best bond. And then just place something heavy on here to kind of get that bond set, or press down really hard. But look at how beautiful this piece turns out. I love this riser. It's going to be very versatile, something that you could use year round and decorate it for different seasons. I kind of like having it offset a little bit like this so you're not looking directly at a straight edge. I kind of like the look of the corner. It's kind of fun to see a square piece as a riser. You don't typically see those very often, and I really do like the way they look. What do you guys think of this? Do you think that my daughter's going to be happy with this? I would like to thank you so much for joining me for today's compilation video. I hope that you enjoyed all of these DIYs. If you had a favorite, let me know down in the comments. I always love to hear which ones you guys like the best. Thank you so much for watching today. I'll see you next time. Happy crafting! If you like the video that you just saw and you want to keep crafting together, here's another video that you might enjoy. And as always, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.